Hi everyone, Sandra here from the Schwoven's Nest. Today is the day. I'm so excited to be co-hosting this Trash to Treasure Thrift Makeover Challenge with Sonja from Domestic Diva. This was a home decor challenge. We asked you to go to a thrift store and pick up an item that you could incorporate into your style of decor at home. There was no limit to the amount of money you could spend on your thrift item. We just wanted you to then make it over and make it your own. Be sure to check out all the other great videos in the playlist link in the description box.
I picked up this wood sign. As you can see, it was still brand new at the thrift store, and it was $5.99 at Value Village here in Canada, and it has some really good bones to it. I like the palette look and the way the things are rough on the edges here. So I am going to use this as the top of my little table that I'm going to create. So the first thing I'm going to do with this is remove all of these, remove the exterior, and then paint it all white, front and back, with a couple of coats of Rust-Oleum linen white chalk paint. Now that this is all nice and dry, I'm going to use the chalked aged gray from Rust-Oleum, and I'm going to use my dry brush technique to just give it a little bit of distressing. Dry brushing technique that I do just uses one of these dollar store paintbrushes. I usually just use enough of the paint that's on the lid because I don't need a whole lot. What I do is I dunk the brush into the paint and then I dab it off on here, and then just simply start dry brushing in the direction of the grain of the wood. So for this, it's going to be across, using a very, very light touch, a little bit on the edges. I found an inspirational sign that I'm going to use part of it. I did want some of these laurel leaves in mine and Garden Market, and this is kind of really nice and rustic. I'm not sure that I'm going to use any of the colors that are in there. I'll probably leave it just black and gray, but I really like some of the features of this. I will link it in the description box below so you can go and see where I got my inspiration from. So most of these stencils that I'm going to use for this project I picked up at Dollarama. They were $1.25, and you can see that they have all of the capital letters and the lowercase and some numbers. So I have this pattern, hope you can see that, and then I also have this pattern which I will be using, and I also have some other larger letters. I'll just lay them down like that so you can see them, but I think these are going to be a little bit too big. I love this style, so these I picked up at Michael's, so I'm probably going to go back and see if I can find smaller versions of this style. And then I also have some laurel leaves. I'm not sure if you can see that very well. I found these at my Dollarama as well. These are Waverly stencils, and I got them in a whole bunch of different little flowers, so I'll make some type of a design with those. I'm also going to use some painter's tape just to make sure I get the letters all evenly spaced. So in taking a look at my design, I decided to use smaller letters for the word the, and then for Garden Market, I'm actually going to be using these next size up of stencils. And these are stencils that are available at Michael's. I did find these at a dollar store. It's called the Great Canadian Dollar Store, and they were $1.50 for a whole pack. So I'll be punching these out and using these as my stencils. When I get a pack of stencils that looks like this, I always cut out the letters just to make it easier to work with. So I'll just cut. So before I start stenciling, I always make sure that I've got everything spaced the way I want it to be, and make sure that I have enough room for all the letters, because of course I do want it centered nicely. So I think that's going to look good, and then Market will be below that. And while I have those letters placed there, then it gives me an idea of where I can put my tape to make sure that they're in a good spot. And then I'll do the same for the next row, which will be the word market. So that looks pretty good. What I'm going to do is just take a measurement of these two spaces to make sure that I do the same amount of space here. So it's about 2 1/4 plus a couple of little lines. I don't know what that is. 2 1/4 plus a couple of little lines. So it's going to be right around there. And now I'm ready to go ahead and stencil the rest of these. So my stenciling technique is to start in the center and work my way out to make sure that I have everything centered correctly. So I'm going to be starting with the R and the D to make sure that they are in the center of the H. Now I'm going to use my laurel leaves stencil, and I'm going to just put 2 on the bottom and then 2 on the top, just to make sort of a little bit of a circle decor. It won't necessarily be a full circle, but I just want to put some accents. So after looking online and printing off a old wheelbarrow that I thought I would like to do, I actually took a look at the original Pinterest image and decided that I liked the look of that wheelbarrow better. So I'm going to just do it freehand and sketch the outline, and then I'm actually going to use green paint just like this has and fill it in first, and then I'll go over it with the letters. I'm using one of my small little fine paint brushes, so I can very easily just use a little bit of a dry brush and not get too thick of a line. So here we go. Here's a close-up of the wheelbarrow. I think it turned out pretty good for just a freehand design, a little bit 3D. So now I'm going to go ahead and let that dry and then work on using my paint pen to fill in the letters. So the paint pens that I use are from Craftsmart, and they're available at Walmart, and I believe they're about $8.99 a piece, but if you go with your 40 or 50% off coupon, you'll be able to get them for around $4.50. This is black, and that's the color I'll be using today, or the chisel tip. They also have fine tip markers as well, if you work better with that. So I decided that I'm not going to fill in the stencil completely and leave a little bit of white space, because that makes it look a little bit more distressed. I'll have to adjust these here where I started, but I'll probably just take a little bit of white chalk paint and just color them in a little bit less, so they look more like these. What I'm going to do now is just mimic the lines on my little picture here, and you can see that they go through the word the, so I'm just going to do a little bit of mimicking of that, but I'm just going to use my pencil because I don't want it to be really dark like the paint pen. Last thing I'm going to do now that my paint is dry on here and the oil-based letters, that's all dry as well, is I do want to scuff these up a little bit, but I don't want to use sandpaper. So I'm just going to do a dry brush technique again, just using my linen white this time. And I still am using the same brush that I did with the gray. And I'm just going to very gently go across the letters so they look a little bit more distressed and not so brand new. I am just going to take my little tiny paintbrush and fix up these 3 little leaves where I started filling them all in. I'm just going to add a little tiny bit of white chalk paint just to kind of give them more of a distressed look as well. And that's it for the top part of this. I'm going to let that all dry, and I will be putting a clear coat of the Rust-Oleum chalk paint overcoat. It will be on my porch, which is a covered porch, but I still don't want any of this paint to actually go anywhere. Was at our cottage when we first got it, and I just thought it was really cute. It is a folding seat, but I'm going to actually use the bottom of this now for my table. So I will be putting my palette that I'm painting on top of this. So I need to remove this fabric. So I'm going to do that now. So now that I'm done the top part of the sign, it's time to paint the bottom of it, or I shouldn't say the sign, the table. This is how it's going to stand up, but just for ease of painting, I'm just going to lay it down and paint it this way. So I'm using my Country Gray Rust-Oleum chalk paint, and I'm going to probably give it a couple of good coats, and then I'm going to wet distress it. So the bottom part of my little table stand is almost dry, but while I'm waiting for it to dry and before I can wet distress it, I'm going to need to affix the top table portion to it. And I'm going to just use my hot glue gun just to secure it for now until I figure out how I'm going to put my screws in, because I do want to keep it sturdy. I'm going to be using this out on my front porch, so I want it to be quite sturdy. I'll probably put a couple things on it and maybe around it. I don't want it to topple over from the wind. So that's what I'm going to do now. So here I've got my sandpaper, and I've just decided that I'm going to do it that way instead. It's just something that I'm more comfortable with. So this is the Rust-Oleum protective top coat in a matte clear finish. It goes on just like paint, so that's why I like to use it. I've never used wax before, but I will probably try that at some point as well. But for now, I'm just going to stick to this until it's finished. This is what the matte clear looks like. It's kind of has the same thickness and texture as Mod Podge. So I'm going to go ahead and just use my regular brush to apply it and then let it dry, and I'll probably do a second coat.
Here's the completed table in my garage. I'm going to style it out on my front porch. I'm just hoping for a sunshiny day that I can do that, and then I will include that in this video as well. But I'm really happy with how it turned out. I think it's very sweet, rustic, and I think it's gonna look perfect on my front porch with some greenery around it and maybe even something sitting on top of it. This is my front porch. I have some items on here, but it's not actually completely finished, but I wanted you to see how it's going to look on the porch. I think the table is really cute. It fits in really well with sort of a rustic farmhouse kind of look. I've got a little bit of flowers there. I've still got my Thanksgiving turkey who stays out all year round, so he was also a Christmas turkey. And then I've also got my other welcome sign that I just did in a previous video. For now, I've just used a candle and put that on top of the table, but in the future, when I get the rest of my spring decor ready for the front porch, I'll probably be doing a few other things, which I will share with you all as well. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, share the video with your friends and family, and don't forget to click the bell to get notified when I upload new videos.